Welcome to the FNO InsureTech podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things InsureTech. Here are your hosts, Lee Boyd and Rob Beller.
Hey, podcast world, I'm going to say it again. Welcome to another fabulous edition of FNO InsureTech. That's right. There's many imitators, but there's only one original, the FNO InsureTech podcast.
That's us.
He is your host, Lee Boyd. I am your host, Rob Beller.
Yeah.
That's right. You have two hosts because our podcast is so big, it cannot be contained by one host. Don't you agree?
Yeah. We used to be called co-host, and we thought, well, that's too hard to say. We'll say host.
There's too many letters.
Let's just make it easy, and we'll say host.
Well, you know, the big problem was, is there a hyphen or is there not a hyphen?
Yeah. There's a hyphen. With ChatGPT today, everything has a hyphen. Have you ever noticed that?
I haven't.
Oh, it's written by AI because it's all hyphenated. Every word is hyphenated. All the words. To term, right? Nobody's going to put a hyphen. Every word is hyphen. And it's right. But you know. So yeah, co's, hyphen, host, co-host.
It's funny that you're talking about AI.
Yeah?
Or an AI tool. I heard a webinar of sorts today where the leader of the AI study program at Stanford, huge program there.
They're pretty good.
Was being interviewed about employment disruption and AI.
What do you have to say?
He had to say that he's concerned about what is going to happen in the world of employment and who's going to lose their job.
Yeah.
Or who's going to need to be retrained. And they talked a lot about retraining and how, generally speaking, retraining hasn't been that effective. But we talked about it on the podcast today as well.
Well.
And you'll hear about that. I'm not going to spoil it. But
you're talking about AI real quick and retraining. I was in Sunday school the other day. We call it Sunday school still, but I was there the other day and the guy was like, hey, I'm no longer in the IT department at my school. He works at a public school. I'm now teaching computer science. And I thought, well, that's a different world. You're going to have to train the way you teach computer science. It's not like it was 20 years ago. It's a whole different thing now. And I thought, that's really interesting. I wonder how they're going to train people who just go to AI and all the tools. How do you elevate that? How do you make that even a better job than it was? I might digress there. I apologize.
Yeah. The future is unknown.
Yeah, it's unknown.
And that was kind of one of the points that we talked about with our guest today, Cameron MacArthur, who is the founder and CEO of AI Insurance, which is a technology platform for MGAs, MGUs, captives, and other small commercial insurance organizations. We know Cameron because we had him on when he was just starting a little puppy company in 2019.
I'm sure he loves that little puppy company.
He was cool about it. I gave him a hard time. And the reason that Lee and I are talking like this is because Lee's not on the podcast today.
I'm not. It's another one that I'm not able to make, but my trusty host, Rob, did it for us.
That's right.
So
your host, Lee, unhyphenated. It's not HO-ST.
No, that would be inappropriate.
And Lee was not able to make it today. Why weren't you able to make it today, Lee?
Just going to throw me on the spot. I had a few meetings that that popped up that I was unable to get out of.
All right. Okay.
A few high-level meetings that I had to be a part of. But I do miss seeing Cameron.
As been announced previously, Lee is now the president of claims operations at Alacrity. In case you're wondering, yes, that's a big job. And so sometimes his work parts of his work get in the way of other parts of his work. You know what you need to do? You need a lead AI. That's what we need.
We
need a lead AI. I wonder if you can make that happen. Can you look into it?
You know, for some reason, Aaron has come into my mind. As somebody who can like upload me into an AI cloud, and like all of a sudden I become an AI. Maybe I'll do the podcast portion.
I'd be intimidated because my AI would probably be much better than me.
Yeah, you're right. It probably would be.
Thanks a lot, schmuck.
Probably
Thanks.
right. But I'm guessing it all depends what version. Is it 4.0 or are we getting like a 3.5? I don't know. You could dumb it down some if you want to.
I don't know. I do not know. But
Well, why don't we listen to a podcast?
why don't we stop jibber jabbering? So let's get to our interview with Cameron MacArthur, founder and CEO at AI Insurance. Hey everybody, we are here with a repeat guest who, and when I say he's a repeat guest, that I can't emphasize that enough. Your second time on F&O InsureTech, and the first time was, I'm thinking 2019.
Yeah,
Maybe.
could be.
Right? You were just out of Y Combinator, right?
Yep.
We have with us Cameron MacArthur, founder and CEO of AI Insurance. I'll say it this way, welcome back.
Happy to be here, Rob. It's good to see you.
It's
Too
good
long.
It's good to see you. You still look like a kid.
Well, I don't take that one as a compliment, I think, anymore, although it's probably a positive.
You
but
should take it as a compliment, man, as long as we're willing to give it to you. No one looks at me and says, hey, Rob, you look like a kid. That the ship sailed.
I was told by our head of operations that she's like, no, I think you do finally look old enough that you can sell to folks in the insurance space. And I was like, oh, that's spectacular news. But I'll let her know she was just gassing me up.
Yeah. Well, it's great to have you back. And we have so many things to talk about. But let's just catch up personally a little bit. So I knew you. I came to know you. We came to know you by virtue of Y Combinator, right?
Yep.
Were you in the same Y Combinator cohort as my son?
I'd have to check. Do you know what his... We were winter of 2019.
That's what you were, winter 2019?
Yep.
Okay. I think he was 2018, but right around the same time, certainly.
I can look him up. Yeah, winter of 2019.
Okay. So you guys were there at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
Because I think it was Alex, my son, who told me about you. He's like, hey, Dad, because we just started the podcast. We had no idea what we were doing or where we were heading. And he's like, there's some insurance plays here in our cohort. And you were one of them.
Heck yeah. And
That's
Alex
very
is
cool.
killing it, right? Postscript is...
Postscript has done pretty well. Yeah. I think on the inside, they're constantly, worrying and pulling their hair out. But from the outside looking in, yeah, it's been a heck of a ride. And what about AI Insurance? How are you doing?
Hey, it's going pretty well. We're still here. We grew 150%, I think, from last year. Comfortably profitable. So a lot of good things that I think a lot of startups don't get to hit. And, those kinds of things that maybe weren't so popular in the past that are back in vogue,
Yeah, you mean being profitable?
Yeah, being companies that make money and things like that.
And that have some longevity?
Yeah. I mean, 7 years, I think, is definitely an outlier in the space, right? Of, I think, like our ecosystem.
That's one of the things that I wanted to touch on was that, we want a good update on AI Insurance and what you guys are doing and what you do, because I'm sure it's not exactly the same as when we first spoke. But, as we've been doing our podcast for 7 years, you've been doing this for 7 years. We've seen a lot of change during that period of time. And, we sit in a little more of a global perch than I'm sure you do. You're focused on your business and what you do. But how have you done it? I mean, were you in the right place at the right time, the right product at the right time, all of the above? Tell us a little bit about your longevity.
Yeah. So, I mean, the core of the company has remained unchanged, right? It's called AI Insurance for a reason. We're applying AI to the insurance vertical. And definitely that was early in 2019, right? A lot of companies weren't interested in that or prepared for that. A lot of things were very machine learning focused. It was shortly after the All About Attention paper, really introducing these transformers that led to all of these large language models were introduced. So like 2020 was when we first ran a hackathon with GPT-3 and used it to, read legal complaints for, folks on the claims side. And now, we've really just expanded on that vision. So we're the platform that runs more than 100 different programs in the insurance space. So this is MGAs, MGUs, captives, risk retention groups, exclusively on the commercial and specialty side. So that also hasn't changed. And, really the vision remains the same in that, this full workflow of running an insurance company, right? From the submission, rate quote, buying, document issuance, digital signature, premium collection, all the way through to claims management can be run on our platform, right? As your core system, with the key differentiator being that huge swaths of that process are replaced by AI and can be, moved over to AI, which is something that I think we've always had a pretty differentiated advantage at because, if you're running steps 1 through 15, it's much easier to swap out step 4 with AI, right? Or give a human in step 4 this kind of AI level up enhancement. So I think we were a little early in, as far as planning for this. And then the technology really grew into our vision. I mean, no one could have anticipated how dramatic, these transformer models and these large language models were going to impact every facet of life. But we're glad. Better to be lucky than good, right?
Yeah, I remember in 2019, asking you about artificial intelligence, when we still said the 2 words, and that it was interesting that you put it in your name, and what really is it? And you attempting to, give us a little bit of an education on what it means and what it could mean in our space. And I think today it's fair to say that at maturity, it's going to be profound. Is that fair?
I mean, I think it already has been profound. I mean, we're seeing, just so like the surface area of our platform is designed to say, you're not going to do any data entry in, and you're not going to do any data entry for getting your data out, right? So all your reports and your spreadsheets and your PDFs, those are all going to be automated and generated out by AI, and all the data collection is going to be automated by AI. And the time savings is pretty dramatic, right? There are some components of this where we're better than humans, right? Reading in invoices from defense counsel. These models are now more accurate and make fewer mistakes than humans. Reading in loss data, like historical loss data on a submission. We ran an in-house test with 50 different, sets of loss data. And when there were discrepancies between what the AI did and what the human did, and we went back and checked, in every single case, the human said, yeah, I messed that up. Yeah, that is subrogation. That should be included in that indemnity and, or total incurred amount and subtracted out of it. And the AI got that right. So we're seeing, at scale, phenomenal amounts of time being saved in that, humans can really focus in on this truly differentiated advantage, right? Which is like the underwriting, the adjusting, the parts of this process that are discretely human.
I mean, and I would think, like in some of these smaller organizations, like risk retention groups, things like that, or some of these captives that are a few people, right? They're not large, vast organizations with tremendous human bandwidth. They must love you They must.
I think this is the core thesis, right? Is that you can start up and run an insurance company with a person, right? The barrier to entry on setting up an MGA or an MGU used to be really dramatic, right? Software was $400,000. You needed a ton of staff to do each of these components. And now you can go 0 to 1 for a tenth of that cost, and then go 1 to 10 or 1 to 100 and not have to hire any staff, right? Or hire far fewer, because a lot of these processes, like for example, accounts receivable, right? You're billing and you're receiving money and you're paying attorneys, and all of these things are now automated away, right? Bills are self-reconciling. You receive the money, we automatically mark it as paid. You want to pay an attorney, you can just click pay. We ACH from the money, we mark it as paid. So you're not running a check run. You're not reconciling against a check run. You're not, you're reducing risk of check fraud. No one is printing or running these checks. No one is like receiving these and collecting premium. Forms generation, right? You used to write up a reinsurance report, right? And you'd have to type that out manually. Now you've got an AI smart tag that says, summarize all the notes on this claim in 6 bullets or less, right? That drops in, your reinsurance report gets generated, you're off to the races. So it's like the number of hours needed to be invested are dropping dramatically, which lets the market scale, which is why we're seeing this rapid movement of premium dollars into the MGA, MGU program space.
Like you said something very interesting before we started, and tell our audience what it is that you said.
So the amount of premium written by MGAs and MGUs since 2020, roughly when you and I last talked, has doubled. The number of captives has stayed the same, and the amount written by carriers and the number of carriers has decreased. So that's just if you look at the area graph of that, it's very clear that the market is moving into these vertically integrated brokers and these smaller, more specialty programs. And we're seeing the carrier picture, I think, become more abstracted, similar to the banking as a service model. We've seen like Brex and Ramp and Mercury and these, banks that aren't banks say, we're just going to have the bank be on the back end. They exist to, be FDIC insured from a regulatory perspective, and they exist to have this balance sheet, right? So that you can do things like loan and have this big capital. And functionally, I think we're seeing more and more of the insurance market go that way as well, where you've got fronting carrier. Yeah.
What drove that?
I think 2 things. One is that sales is the driver, right? Like capitalism is pure in that if you're a broker and you get 10% commission, but you own the distribution on a whole section of the market, you're going to look for an opportunity to vertically integrate and capture more of the capital for the value you're providing, right? So if you're a broker and you place business for 2 massive companies that, let's say, offer security guards, right? Like contract security. Madison Square Garden needs a security guard, and it just so happens that market is dominated by 3 large players, right? Okay. And it just so happens that 2 of those 3 players are clients of Rob's, right? And you're a broker. You're placing the business for 60% of the security guard market. You understand it pretty uniquely, right? You go try to place it in a lot of carriers, and they're like, what? These guys have guns? Like, what? We're not insuring that, right? They don't necessarily understand the nuances of your clients the way you do. And so, you have a pretty unique business opportunity to say, look, I'm getting 10% commission on my client. I'm doing a ton of work to try to build, I'm having to pull policies from 5 different places to cover my client's risk. Because these folks will say, all right, we'll insure them for PL, but not for any of the gun stuff, right? And so then you got to go find someone else to fill this slot, and it's painful for you. And instead you can say, you know what? I will go get capacity from a carrier, go get someone to front so that I can write in all 50 states, form a program, and I can give my clients a better experience, right? I can get them better policies that cover their risk better at a lower price because it's more specific to them. And I can then I can serve even more of the security guard space. And instead of getting 10%, I can get, 37%.
Right.
And so it's really a win all the way around. And so I think that's one big driver. And then some things have enabled that to happen more quickly. One of them is software at scale, right? We make like scalable SaaS software. So instead of having to pay $400K to go into the red before you've even gotten capacity, you can, pay close to a tenth that and get your 0 to 1. So that like speed of go live, it used to take 18 months to set up a system, right? And so you're like, in 18 months, the whole market will change. And now that's shifted dramatically, right? You can get a rating engine set up on AI insurance in a week or two. So that lower of the barrier to entry by technology, which is the bread and butter of technology, right? Here's this thing that's really hard. It used to cost $500,000 in 18 months. And now we can do it in a month or less. For a tenth the price. And so that enables these folks to get spun up more quickly. I think specialization is a factor as well, right? You're seeing more and more specificity around insurance, which has been coming for quite some time, right? You've seen even the big home and auto folks are saying, hey, put this little device in your car and, we'll rate your premiums based on how you drive and your risk, right? We're getting more and more specialized as data becomes more and more accessible. And so there's this opportunity to say, okay, great. We're not just offering people professional liability insurance. We're going to offer specific kinds of coverage to my specific clients and get the carriers more directionally aimed.
The carriers must love it because they have people bringing them business that they may be particularly, suited to underwrite. And
I think they also get to be more specific, right?
Correct.
Someone else is going to do more of the work. They're being brought all these programs and they get to pick and choose, what do we want our appetite to look like over the next, 5-10 years? Maybe I don't want to touch security guards. Maybe, so it's like they're getting more specific with their risk too, just at a higher abstraction level, right?
Well, it's like you're saying, they don't want, one carrier might say, they have guns, right? Are you crazy? Or the next one will say, oh, they have guns. Okay. Right. We see that, and we've seen that when I just think about the amount of time I've been in the industry, I've definitely seen specificity, to use your word, that carriers are trending in that direction. And so the MGA world, the MGU world is a natural outgrowth of, let's find a program that we can literally make a business out of, that. And do a better job.
Yeah, you're making your clients happier too, because you can offer them better prices because they're, being more specific, more direct, more custom to them. So it does feel pretty win-win all around.
And as far as you're concerned, all of them, everybody we're talking about needs a system to run it from.
Yes, all of them should be running on AI insurance, because really that's the second piece here is, you're running an insurance company. Yes, you've captured more of this premium dollar and you can continue to have your costs stay stagnant or go down because of the advent of AI. And that has really opened up some spectacular things on enabling this. It used to be, if you're coming off a system, part of this 18-month process is because data migration is a nightmare, right? Everyone has been through a horrible data migration. And that's because it was very manual, right? You have to say, like, where does this go? And, we held a date. Is it a retro date? Is it a policy start date? And it doesn't know what it means. And now you can quite literally drop your data in and an AI model will read everything and map everything and make a best guess and upload all the data. And then you review it and, inevitably some mistakes are made and you make some tweaks and it'll re-upload it. But that process in the worst cases is, now on the scale of a month, right? Or a couple months. instead of a year or a couple of years. So you're seeing these orders of magnitude improvements of what were very manual processes enabled by just AI models.
So the AI will structure your data.
Yeah. Like come up with the mapping. You say, hey, here's everything. I mean, we'll usually like literally record the meeting, right? Where someone will explain how their data is structured. And then you can just pass that into the model, right? Here's the explanation, and not everything is, there's still some human components, right? You have logic, you need to explain how you want your forms attached and things like that. But technology has really lowered the barrier of entry on all of these things. You used to have to take all your forms and create them in HTML and pull in this variable data. And now you can just upload them as Word documents. And so, that right there used to take 6 months and a bunch of tech facing things. And now you can just upload Word documents and issue a policy. So the barrier has dropped.
Hey, Lee, you know what I'm thinking about?
No? What are you thinking about?
The beautiful season of fall. And you know what that means?
No, I don't.
Not the colors, not the weather, not get out your sweaters, but get on a plane and get to Las Vegas for ITC Las Vegas.
ITC Las Vegas. It is coming up October 14th through the 16th. What a great time. Rob and I are headed back. Can't wait for it. Nothing like fall in Las Vegas.
And once again, the annual convening of all the InsureTech nerds and concerned parties all in one place under one enormous roof. So if you're going to ITC Las Vegas, look for us there.
Look for us there. Also, use the code in the show notes below. That'll get you a discount on your registration. But we look forward to seeing everybody in Las Vegas in October. And if you see us, come by and say hi.
See you in the fall. So with the pace of change in the world because of AI, does that present unique challenges to your business, even on a competitive level?
For sure. I think the interesting thing that AI has done is dramatically lower the barrier on building as well. So you really have to have a pretty differentiated advantage because, some of the case to be made here is, oh, well, I could build this in-house much faster and much cheaper than I used to be able to if I'm a big carrier, right? And I think some of this is, why we built and focused on organic growth for a long time was that, insurance is very complicated. We get a lot of folks approaching us saying, hey, I want to start up an insurance company. What do I do? Right? Because they're coming from the tech side and they see this really clear business opportunity. And some of it is quite funny because I get experienced founders that have raised money before, lots of money. And we're like, well, you're going to have to go get capacity. And they're like, okay, great. How long will that take? 3 weeks? And you're like, it's going to take a lot longer than 3 weeks because you're, not raising money. You're getting someone to lend you their paper or reinsure
Right.
you. And that process is significantly slower. And so while you can build software, there's a ton of insurance institutional knowledge of how these things work that is quite hard, right? There's a 7-year moat on building something like this yourself. And I do think that, I feel very strongly that where we're going to see a shift in the space is you've no doubt seen a ton of point solutions that do AI recently, right? Where someone will say, we do AI for submission parsing, or we do AI for claims parsing, right? These very narrow point-based solutions. And candidly, I think that the clock is ticking on those being differentiated. I think a lot of these things that feel magical now, right? Here's a submission, parse it, get all the data out. You used to have to send it over to India to do it. Now you can, do it in minutes. Feels so groundbreaking that you're like, we have to do this. Like, we have to get this product. But candidly, I think, even though we obviously have an advantage, we've been doing this for longer. I don't think these models are getting so good so fast that our advantage on the AI point solution side, our submissions parsing is better. Is it 12 months better than our competitors? Probably not, because I think the curve of the line here is these models getting twice as good. And so once the models get twice as good, if you're just wrapping around the model, the edge differentiated work you did is kind of getting washed away by how quickly the model is getting better. Does that make sense? So I think
totally
all of these, AI submission person, AI claims person, a lot of these things are just going to become table stakes in your core systems.
Yeah. We see it in companies that we interview, like I won't mention names or anything, but that they have a very specific place that they work inside of the claims, value chain, if you will. And I can't see the competitive advantage in that in the long run, right? It's super cool now and awesome, but it's just going to get eaten by somebody else, something else who can, go further, deeper, faster, farther. It's
or just if a competitor can spin up in 2 weeks, right? Then I think you get this case of, it's really why we're the platform plays, because we think that the end-to-end workflow and understanding that at the insurance level, right? Like you mentioned, being an insurance guy and really understanding the end-to-end workflow from an insurance perspective is the differentiator here, because someone saying, oh, we can, parse your complaints that you get on a claim, the barrier to entry to that is so low. You call the OpenAI API and pass it a complaint and it gets you 90% of the way there. And in 4 months, it'll get you 100% of the way there.
And I would think, knowing the insurance industry like I do, that we all know that the insurance industry by its nature is risk averse and hesitant, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but to be able to speak to somebody, say like yourself, who understands the insurance aspect of the whole thing, and that how it's going to work for the insurance process in using the language that the potential customer speaks, that's kind of a moat in and of itself.
I think so. I mean, there's it's like you said, on the outside, things seem good. And on the inside, they're always pulling their hair out, right? Like that's sort of the nature of running a growing business. And I think, we've had a ton of that too, right? There's so much nuance and pain in learning how to do the insurance workflow well at scale. That's really the hard part, more than just, calling one of these models. And though we do have an advantage in calling these models because we've, got a 7-year head start, I think that head start is actually, less of a moat than the knowledge-based one as I think about scale.
Well, we talked earlier that we probably asked you on your first episode, are you a technology company? This is something that was very interesting to us about InsureTech back then was, are you a technology company or are you a service provider, insurance service provider? What are you, right? And almost unanimously, people would say, we're a technology company. So I'm going to ask you that question today. I thought that your answer that you gave me earlier was terrific.
I would definitely consider us a technology company. So that hasn't changed. I think the differentiator now is more that, we very deeply understand insurance. And, that's just really all credit to our original customers and partners that have, we've been very focused on building for over the years. And now we run, more than 100 programs. And so have really gotten that expertise at scale. But for sure, our value add to those customers is in being a technology company, right? Is in being AI insurance, the workflow software for running their companies that brings them to the bleeding edge of AI, right? Mm-hmm. Make no mistake, we are a tier 5 OpenAI customer, and, we're one of the first folks to use Cloud Code, and, are a Vertex customer, we're at the bleeding edge of every single one of these models, and, have a whole section of our team just devoted to improving the models at scale and getting better and better at doing each of these AI differentiators. I think one of the other things that you would asked about that really kind of drives this home is, hey, are you an insurance company or a technology company? We have a customer who they do all this data entry in the trucking space. So they get, whole list of trucks that are on or off a policy based on being on or off a lot. And they get it every single month. And their customers are sending them sideways, scanned in, handwritten, faxed, PDF documents where they're reporting things scribbled in pen. And that's always been a deeply human process, right? And they would send that overseas, right? They worked with a company that would just plug a human into receiving all this data, entering it all into a spreadsheet so that they can then report to their carriers, right? And they would do that every month. And it was costing them a significant amount of money. AI Insurance has an AI data import where you can just drop in a bordereau or a loss run or kind of any other set of data on a regular basis that's, consistently the same kind of data. But as we all know, a bordereau and a loss run month to month will change and look different, and people will mistype things and add new fields and add new columns. And we'll read that the way an underwriter or an adjuster would and data enter everything into the platform. And even though the data that they're sending over contains sideways scanned in PDFs and all this crazy mess, everything gets entered into AI Insurance and they can do their reporting out of it. And that has saved them a significant amount of hours and money. And B, our accuracy is better. So these models are actually, we're better at reading these sideways scanned in handwritten PDFs than the folks that they were outsourcing it to. And so it's like, why, Cameron, I still consider, our differentiated advantage there is being a technology company. And then I wouldn't say we're an insurance services company, we're a technology company, but we understand insurance deeply. We are AI Insurance. We're looking at doing insurance with, the AI vertical. And so 7 years of understanding what a commercial trucking policy looks like is why we're able to do that at so much higher of an efficacy than they could do themselves if they tried to bring the technology in, or then, someone else could do who doesn't have this, lengthy insurance experience that we have.
And I think also one of the reasons that we tend not to ask that question of people anymore is that, like you were saying earlier, the insurance world is so much more comfortable with the technology world today. Even in the time you've been in it, I'm sure you've seen a marked transition and change. Yeah, is that correct?
Oh, spectacularly so. I mean, we just last week, we had a fantastic call where it used to be that folks wanted nothing to do with the technology side, right? So, you'd pay these huge implementation fees. When I say, oh, you can upload all your forms yourself, people are like, we just want to give it to you and you figure it out. And we're uninterested in technology. It's a means to an end. We have the bare minimum to keep doing exactly what we're doing, and we don't want change. And now we consistently get on calls where the first question people ask is, hey, what kind of APIs do you have so that I can interface with the data layer of my data and, do things that your platform doesn't have yet? And, what kind of tooling do you have to let me do all of this stuff directly, right? We had a customer who, a prospect who wants to build out all their own forms logic, right? And attachment logic for forms is very complicated. And it's something that no one has ever wanted to do, right? And it's fascinating how these conversations have shifted because, in what I would call the old days, folks would say, here's a spreadsheet of my logic, you do it. I don't understand it. I don't even want to fill out the spreadsheet, right? And that was the most painful part of our onboarding process. And here, this prospect and I are getting, they're ready to tussle around the fact that they want to build out all their own forms logic. And I'm like, you want to do all the work for the most difficult part of the onboarding process? That's your big ask to me, is that you get to do the work yourself instead of having me code in all this logic. You want to code up all your logic yourself? Of course you can do that, right? That's a dream come true. And we're seeing a lot of these, especially newer MGAs are coming to the table with these expectations, right? They're like, I want to move fast. I want to get it set up quickly. Yeah.
But are they also coming with staff or people or members of their team that are knowledgeable and able in this regard?
Definitely.
That's a fairly, like the story you just shared is a fairly sophisticated ask that like you were saying, you don't see every day, but I think that you'll probably see it increasingly, particularly as lay people, if you will, technical insurance people, come to understand how all this works and what it all means and what's a part of it. It wouldn't surprise me to see your customers bringing you ideas.
That's definitely true. And I think that it's really critical for leaders to recognize which side of the shift they're on, right? Like we do AI parsing of all your defense counsel invoices. And we actually do that data entry more accurately than a human. And we had a client that we noticed wasn't using it. We were like, it's free, right? Like it's very confusing. So we were like, wait, they're data entering it all manually, but we're more accurate than humans. We make fewer mistakes and it's obviously less work, right? To forward an email and have it all get data entered. And the long and short of it, as you'd expect, is that the person who was doing all of the data entry was afraid they would lose their job. They're doing all the data entry and now they don't have to. They just forward the emails and we do the data entry for them. And they're worried they were going to lose their job. And so it's, I think, critical from a leadership perspective to recognize, there's a lot of wasted talent there, right? And so your job as a leader, unless you want to get completely beaten by the folks that are coming up expecting these things, is to go to your team and push them to say, hey, if you're doing data entry, where can that stop? And give people confidence that, hey, we're not going to eliminate your job just because you've made us more efficient, right? Like we can have you do more focused, differentiated work and scale the business, right? The point here is not that your job is going to go away. It's that if you are doing this data entry on claims, then you can focus on adjusting, right? And because like, for example, AI, not that good at, setting reserves compared to the best humans. Still, there's still some very differentiated advantages here. And so you can laser in and say, great, now we can handle twice as much business because, so there's a responsibility on the leader side to give your people confidence, give your people security, and also suss these things out because you need good leadership to say, hey, we don't do that anymore, right? Like if you want to keep your job, you got to not be data entering things manually.
Isn't it a common question or concern that you run into during the sales process? Isn't that our jobs are going to get eliminated? I mean, it's certainly a theme in AI today is about that. I just heard a program this morning as I was driving around about a guy who leads the whole Stanford AI initiative talking about just that, about, the cost in employment is going to be across, the country nationally. And I mean, do you run into that? Is that a concern that you hear?
I don't think it's a concern that we hear during the sales process because at the sales process, you're dealing with the business level, right? Which is, hey, they're like, our business is going to go out of business if all of our competitors beat us, right? Mm-hmm. And then everyone's lost their jobs, right? So the number one way to, keep people's jobs is to, grow your business and to innovate. And for sure, I don't have a good sense of what the jobs look like, right? If your job is just data entry, it's important that you pivot and figure out where else you can add value to your business. I think it's of note that every time there's been a huge technological change, what we think is going to happen is not what happens, right? Like one that I really like is when the ATM came out, it was like, oh my gosh, bank tellers are done, right? Now you can get your money out of an ATM. There's not going to be any more bank tellers. And there's something like hundreds or I think it's hundreds more bank tellers today, like in-person human ones, than there were when the ATM was released. And there's also like 300,000 more ATM locations. So, those tellers didn't lose their jobs. In fact, we have orders of magnitude more tellers than we had before. The role has just shifted. I think the only job to actually be eliminated by technology was elevator operator. That's like in history. And so, that's not to say that a job or a task might be eliminated, but I don't think that correlates to a role necessarily being eliminated. And if it does, if you're a business, the solution is not don't change, because I think people recognize that adoption of technology is just critical to staying ahead in business.
It's how you stay ahead. It's how you keep up, for goodness sake, right? I want to pivot in the few minutes that we have left and talk about you a little bit.
My favorite thing to talk about, Rob.
Nah, I don't buy that. Although you wouldn't know that from your posts on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Hey, look at me. No, it's great. In fact, I mentioned before we went on today that I've followed Cam's journey, basically through LinkedIn. It's been great. Although our paths have crossed several times through the years at conferences, of which you seem to attend just about everyone that exists in the world.
Yeah. But headed to Florida Surplus tomorrow.
Okay.
If anyone's down in West Palm Beach.
There you go. Talk about the journey. Looking back, can you believe what you were trying to do 7 years ago? And how much more now? You've led a company for 7 years. You guys are still around. It's seemingly thriving. Talk a little bit about the journey that you've had the privilege of being on.
Yeah, I think to call it a privilege is really the truest thing, in that, I certainly didn't, you don't expect something like this. Especially when we were coming from the place of a hypothesis, right? Which was that, okay, we feel really strongly that two things are going to happen. One is that there's this fragmentation in the insurance market. You can't serve these little guys, these 0 to 1 MGAs. There isn't a place, and they're going to grow dramatically. And so one thing is sort of when you have an idea and you're, betting on that idea, and you're just kind of waiting for, you're like, I'm sure I'm right. I'm sure I'm right. I'm sure I'm right. It's very, obviously gratifying to see this growth in the MGA space and say, okay, we were early, but we did, see that this would happen. And honestly, I think there's been a ton of change that has happened in my life personally. I was in San Francisco for 7 years and just moved to New York 2 weeks ago, because it is the heart of financial services, right? As we've expanded, like I said, pretty dramatically over the last year, it's very clear that our prospects and our customers and our business, I need to be here. And this gets into your question of, are you a tech company or an insurance, services company? It was a very interesting decision to say, well, our office and our headquarters is still in San Francisco because we are a tech company, and that's where the best tech talent is, or a lot of the best tech talent. And our engineering team is there. But at the same time, you have to be where your customers are and your prospects are. And, so after enough cross-country flights, you say, okay, it's easier to take cross-country flights back the other way than this way. So that's, been dramatic. And I also think that my favorite thing has always been learning. And I think it's what's kept me interested in this space for so long, is the rabbit hole just goes so deep. And every time that I think, I'm like, oh yeah, I understand it. Someone will get on a call and literally, we do more than 100 different lines of coverage, and still consistently, maybe once every couple of weeks, someone will say, hey, do you do this? And they'll give me an acronym, and I'm, typing into ChatGPT as fast as I can to say, what on earth is this guy talking about? And that's, the beauty of this space is, at the end of the day, it's this, risk exchange. People are buying and selling risk and bartering on it. And, you can drill all the way down to really fascinating understanding of like what defines risk and how is that structured and how do you handle it, and it's just never going to be cookie cutter. And so you're just kind of constantly learning about the different permutations that this can take on the insurance side. And from a technology problem set, you're never done because, as much as you'd like to say, great, here's this nice clean box, everybody fit in the box. Inevitably, there's some permutation that comes up where you're like, that doesn't fit in the box. So now we have to figure out how to, from a tech perspective, shift the box and evolve the box and, grow the box to be able to include this new thing that we hadn't understood yet. And that hasn't slowed at all. If anything, it's accelerated. And that's just very exciting, keeps you hooked.
I just want to ask you about running the company. You guys, I remember, and in my reading, like you said, you're profitable. You've never done a great big raise. You've kept it going. Is that still the case?
We raised a little bit of money in March of 2022 because if you were a tech company with AI in your name in March of 2022, as a founder, I had a fiduciary duty to raise money because of just the prices on the market and just how it made sense financially. So we've raised, a decent amount of money a couple times, a few $1 million, enough to like support growth. And we're, not against taking capital to support, aggressive growth. But I think the important thing here is that those things don't need to be mutually exclusive anymore, right? Like the Figma IPO is a really great demonstration of like, yes, actually people still like, profitable businesses that make money. Yeah. And, Figma is also another great example, right? Where it took them quite a long time before their IPO, right? They were thoughtful about, building a real business that, would succeed and scale. And so, yeah, like how we think about business is a little bit different, but I think not exclusive of scaling growth.
Well, it's great to see that you are still at it. I mean, well, here we are 7 years later, and you do look like you're 30 now.
Great. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, I thought I'd end this by being nice.
You look like you're 30, Rob.
I do look like I'm 30. I have a lot of blonde in my beard now, where I didn't have that when I was in my 20s. So that's the giveaway. Well, listen, when I'm in New York, you'll have to buy me lunch or something.
Yes, sir.
For goodness sake.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems fair.
We'll make that happen. And you should look up Alex too.
I will. He's around here.
He's in Brooklyn.
Oh, great. I'll be there. I'm moving there in September.
Cool. Well, listen, we really appreciate you coming back. And it's a pleasure and thrilled with the success that you've created. And don't stop, okay?
Thanks so much, Rob. Great to see you.
Thank you. Always a pleasure. 7 years ago, we had him on the podcast.
7 years. How crazy.
How crazy is that?
I mean, he had to be, early on, first year, right?
He had just come out of Y Combinator, the business accelerator, whatever, and was running this little business. I mean, he knew a little bit about insurance, and it's kind of cool because now he's like a mature leader and knowledgeable insurance guy.
So he knows all about insurance now. It happens, right? It just sticks to you. You just start picking it up.
Well, it's interesting how some of us in the insurance world, we have expertise in insurance, and then some of us in the insurance world have expertise in things around it.
That's
true. For example,
that's true.
My friend Lee Boyd.
Yeah.
You have both. You were an adjuster. You have a lot of claims experience, super ton of claims experience. So you have lots of knowledge of the process and the little nuances of it. But you also have become you have a lot of management expertise.
Yeah,
that you
I know a little bit about a lot.
Yeah. You're very shallow, but very wide.
Very shallow, very wide. It's what everybody wants to be called.
I say that to all the people that I care a lot about. You're
That's
very
right.
shallow.
All the loving stuff. All the loving. That's nice of you. Thank you.
Listen, big thanks to Cam for being with us again after 7 years, and best wishes to him. Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. And thank you, Lee Boyd, for joining us, even though you were a little late today.
A little late, but I'm here now.
But you're here now. So until next time.
Goodbye, everybody.